Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I will share with you a very nice beach bag recipe that belongs to a famous brand. I worked with the original color. I would like to show you the bag up close. Raft yarn was used in the original. I also prepared our bag using shelf yarn. But if you want, you can easily do this work with paper thread or different threads. I want to show the details right away. It's a pretty big bag. It's a beach bag, but I can easily use it in the city as well. I really like this style of bags. Look, I want to show it in handle detail. Let's look at the side parts. It was a very useful work. The original had such a beautiful color and I preferred such a pink. Look, you also see the inner depth. There is no need to hang it inside or anything. If you want, you can make a tutu by using the mouth part or a bag inside it, but it is completely up to your taste. You can have it lined or without lining. You can easily use it this way. In the video, I shared with you the whole production process, step by step. At the end of the video, I also mentioned how much rope I used and the size of our bag. Again, I tried to share it with you step by step. I hope it will be useful. Before moving on to our detailed recipe, I would like to make a small request from you. I would be really happy if you could subscribe to our channel for free, like the video, and leave your comments. Let's move on to our recipe. To knit our bag, I will use raffia yarn that I bought from Aksa Knitting Boutique. At the end of the video, I will share with you how many grams of raffia rope I used. The knitting is very soft, as if you were knitting it with cotton yarn. But instead of shelf string, you can also do this work with paper string. Look, I took the end of my yarn out of the ball. The crochet number I will use will be 3.5 millimeters. You can determine your own crochet number according to the thinness and thickness of your own yarn, the density and looseness of your knitting. Let's grab our rope and get started. We first start with the chain. After locking our first chain like this, we start pulling our chains. We prepare our starting chain so that they are a little looser than the setting we knit. Now we are pulling 59 chains in total. We pulled 59 chains in total. Now instead of the straight part of our chain, I turn it the other way around. Look, there are dashed lines here on the reverse side. There are only dashed lines. We will knit our single needles using these points. Look, it is important to sink into these parts so that we can get a neat look while knitting the other piece. Now look at the chain. I am turning the opposite part, leaving the chain at the end. Look at the one right behind. I sink into the single line here. When I turn, 2 lines will remain on this side of the crochet hook. I sink into the single line. I remove a stitch from here. There are 2 stitches. I wrap them around. I pass them through and knit them on a single crochet. I sink into the next broken line. Look, I'm sinking into the only line. The 2 lines remain on the other side of the crochet hook. I remove the loop from this point. I have 2 stitches to fill. By threading the 2 of them together, I obtain the single needle knitting. Now we will knit our single needles in this way until the end of the row. At this stage, if you think I knitted too fast, you can slow down the video, or on the contrary, watch it by speeding it up. Look, as I described, we will now create our single needles until we reach the end of the row. Now in the last chain, we knit our single needles by sinking into the back incision line. Now we have 58 single needles in total. What are we doing in this way? We skip our stitches slightly, but I make turns without a chain. If you want, you can also make turns by pulling a chain. I don't want the light stitch. I turn my knitting upside down and made a single stitch by sinking into the first space that comes up. I knit a single stitch again. Starting from the first space, we will knit a single stitch by sinking to the point where each space is. Look like this. Let's show. As you can see, we knit our single needles and continue to the other end. I will share the return with you once again. We are nearing the end of our turn. I'm sinking into the last spaces and look, the last space here looks like a spike. Here's our return chain. We dropped the stitch into the last space here and knitted our single needle. If you have started knitting for the first time, the 58 single needles we counted in the first row should be 58 in the second row. Let's pay attention to this. Now we stretch the stitch again, reverse our knitting, and start knitting our single needles again by sinking into the first space. we will knit one single crochet in a space, and the return is as I have shown here. When we come to the last space, look, it looks like this from the reverse side. We will sink into this part. Look, the last spike-shaped needle, that is the first single needle we knit. If you are confused by the wrong part like this, when you turn the knitting straight, look at the single needle here. And the next one is again single crochet, that is the one we started with. We will knit single crochet by sinking to this point, stretch the stitch again and make chainless turns. And now we will lengthen our knitting a little. In the next stage, I will be sharing with you how many glazes I have knitted. As I described to you, I knitted and completed until there were 19 rows. Now I will measure at this stage. If you are knitting with paper thread, you can adjust your own size. There may be more rows of single crochets. Look, the width of our bag with the rope I worked with is 35 centimeters. It was 15 centimeters. In 19 rows, I achieved the measurement of 15 centimeters. Now I would like to mention an important point here. Now our model consists of multiples of 3. We have 58 single needles. What does multiple of 3 mean here? We will get our single needles in the form of 3 plus 3 plus. At the end, we will add a plus single crochet to create our direct point. So the model consists of multiples of 3. Now at the point with the banister, we will install here. For example, if you are working with a thicker thread or a thinner thread, you can determine the number of single crochets here according to your needs. Now we had 58 single needles. We said that the model consists of a multiple of 3 plus 1. Now let's move on to the model. Look, our 19th place is over. Now at this point we go up with 1, 2, 3 chains and turn our knitting. We got around. Look inside the first space that comes up. After 3 chains, I wrap my thread around my hook. I sink into the first gap. I took out a stitch. There are 3 stitches. I fill them. I wrap them both together again. I knit them together to prepare a double handrail. I wrapped them again, came to the same space and removed the stitch. Look, there are 3 stitches. I wrapped them 2 times. I knitted them in 2 ways. Now look, 1, 2, 3. We have obtained 3 handrails at the beginning. I fill it directly with the chain. There is no chain in between. Now we leave 1, 2 spaces and sink into the 3rd space and knit 3 handrails. Now we know the handrail. So I'll go a little faster here. I fill the same space with the 2nd handrail and the same space with the 3rd handrail. 1, 2, I sink into the 3rd space and knit 3 handrails, 1, 2, 3. Look, we are now moving forward to the end of the row. Look, we've reached the end of our turn. When we count these triple handrail groups, we have established 19 models from the beginning. There were 19 models in the original. Now, how did we determine our starting number of single stitches here? We need to multiply 3 for 19 models. We need 19 times 357 single crochets. Since plus 1 will be the direct point for us, we started with 58 single crochets in total. Now we have installed 19 of our models. Look, there should be 3 single crochets left at the last point. We will come back 1, 2 times and sink to the 3rd one. We will knit a single handrail, double handrail. Look, we have to finish this way. Then we go up with 1, 2, 3 chains and reverse our knitting. By wrapping it around our crochet hook, it was stuck in the middle of the model in the original. We will work that way too. Again, we will accept a handrail with 3 chains. We are filling up. Coming to the intermediate space, we weave 2 handrails to this point. We pass 3 handrails to the same space together with the chain at the beginning in this way. We went around it and come again. Look, we weave 3 handrails by sinking into the triangular space between the 3 handrail groups. 2, 3. Look, we will continue like this. I am filling. There is no chain in between. I am sinking into the gap. Look, I am sinking into the gap between the handrail groups and knitting 3 handrails at this point. 2, 3. Those who know will go through this part quickly, but it is useful to show it in detail for those who do not know. We will continue now. Again, our model will be 19 units. There will be 19 of these 3 groups in each row. Now let's come to the end. Let's quickly share with you how we do the finishing here. Look, We have come to the end of the row. There are 19 of our triple handrail groups in this row. Now we are at the end point. Look, we have reached the last point like this. We are filling up. The last 3 handrail groups remain here. And look, there is a point of 3 chains that we went up, what we count as handrail legs. Now we are this chain, and we will sink into the wide space between the handrail. The last point we will sink into is this part. We will immediately create our pull point with the double handrail and finish it. Again, the same beginning. Look, we pull 1, 2, 3 chains and reverse our knitting. We start with 2 handrails and we get 3 handrail groups with the chain. I continue to knit the triple handrail group by passing the triple handrail again and sinking into the wide gap in between. Now it will be easier to understand. Look, we will continue this way. Now the pattern will proceed like this. Now let's knit enough and continue to the next stage together. Look, we continued here with our model row being 18 rows. I will give the measure now. I will only tell you the size of the handrail part we knitted. If you do it differently, you make your adjustments accordingly. Look, this point was exactly 30 centimeters in size, so the handrail point after that single crochet was 30 centimeters. Now after making 18 rows here, look, we knitted our last handrail in the same way. I pull one of my chains, and here I leave my rope a little short and cut it. Then look here again, we will continue with the same rope. This was our starting point. Let's see, we started from here. Now we will continue this same piece again, starting from here. Look, this is the straight part of the single crochet. I'm turning the wrong part. My thread will remain on the left. Look, let's take the end of the thread right away. Here I create a loop with a chain. By the way, the Rafib knit is very soft and really strong, so it's not a Rafi that can break right away. It's really beautiful. I definitely recommend you to ask for this Rafi rope from this knitting. It really suits this bag. I'm coming here now. Look, there are single needles. The straight part of the single crochet, that is, the first row I started with. Look here. This is the reverse part. Since we will be knitting from plain now, I will come right away so as not to disrupt the integrity. Look here, I'm not touching the chained point from the first single crochet. I sting directly from the first single needle. I remove the noose. We had already created the loop. There are 2 stitches and I completed them. I knitted my first single needle by passing both of them through. Keep it here on the short rope. This will show our middle part clearly. Now I'm coming down to the next point. I'm knitting single needle again. As you know, it is as if we have never broken our rope from here and we are making direct turns without chains. You can think of it as if we started directly with single crochet. Look now, the reverse part is here. We are knitting it from the plain side. Look at each point in this way. We made our start. This was our starting point with the chain. We will knit 58 single needles from here. We will knit 19 rows of single crochet as here. In other words, we will do exactly the same process as we did here, starting from here and moving towards this side. So we will knit from 2 identical pieces and the directions will be on the same side. Now, as we have described, we will knit as many single needles as the number of single needles here. We will knit the handrail on this side again and obtain a long rectangular piece. Look, we have knitted our first piece here. After knitting the single needles and crochets, we tied our rope here. In the section where our chained starting point is, we knitted our single needles with the same numbers as we knitted on this side, by sinking into the chained point and continuing with 58 single needles, as we knitted the single needles at the bottom, then knit the same number at the handrail point. Look, we have obtained a long rectangular piece like this. I already gave you the centimeters in the other part. Now look around it. We will make a frame in 2 rows. Did I knit the last handrail here? After the last handrail, do I slightly stretch the stitch? I turn my knitting directly, and at this point I immediately knit 1 single needle, and next look, I come to the top gap where the handrail is, remove the loop and knit single needle. We will make a frame with 2 rows of single needle. Now look at this big rectangular piece of ours straight. We will knit single needle on the top of each handrail. Let's show it closely like this. I'm sinking the top of the banister and I'm knitting single crochet. We'll continue like this as if we've reached the corner point here where it's our turn. I'm knitting my single crochet at the last trabzan top here, and we have 3 chains here. Look, I'm knitting 1 or 2 or 3 single crochets in the 3 chains we went up because it's rectangular. It is necessary to create a piece and a turn. Since these are sharp points, we knit 3 single crochets, then look, sinking into the wide gap of the chained point, we knit 2 single crochets at this point. Look, the handrail dot is coming. I'm knitting 2 single crochets directly into this wide space. Look, we've sunk 3 crochets in the corner. We're moving to the other point in a 22 pattern. The next chain dot is coming. We're knitting 2 single crochets right into this wide space. There is a space with 2 handrails. Look, there is a wide space. We are knitting 2 single crochet marks at this point. Let's do hand ironing. This yarn loves hand ironing. Now we will proceed here by continuing 2 by 2 to get a smooth look. I will share this single needle point with you right now. Look at this. I have always knitted the gaps with 2 single crochets here. If it makes you tight, you can make some points in triples. Now I'm coming to this point. Look at this point. I immediately sink to the point where the single crochet we knitted the handrail and knit a single crochet. Look at the spaces that are suitable here. We move to the point where the single needle is. In other words, we continue knitting our single needles here with 1 single needle in each row. Now we will continue here. When we come to the corner, we will knit 3 single needles in the corner here. Again, as I described, we will proceed by sinking 2 or 2, 3 handrails in the corner, 1 for each of the points when we come to the corner. We will knit 3 single crochets here again, then we will pass this side in the same way as we did. We will have progressed to the first row point where we started the single crochet. Then we will move on to our second row. I will immediately share the second row with you. Look, I want to show you in general that the frame is completely straight. Somehow, by knitting our single needles, we have come to the row of single needles that we started with. Now look at this space. After knitting 2 single needles, we immediately turned without a chain and knitted the handrail point here with a chain needle. We immediately knit the remaining 2 single needles, that is in the corner. Look, there are 3 needles. We are knitting single needle. Now at this point, look directly. I'm not going to scroll or anything. I stretch the loop slightly. I come to the top of the first single crochet. Let's sink in nicely. I'm a little confused here. I start stitching from the top of the first single needle. I'm knitting my single needle right away. See again at the next point. We will proceed by knitting 1 single crochet at the top of each single crochet. Look, when we came to the corner, we made increases at this time. So in the first row, we had 3 sinks right in the corner. We did the same process in the other 4 corners. But in the meantime, by knitting only 1 single crochet on each of them, that is, by knitting 1 single crochet on the corner turn and knitting 1 single crochet on the hole, look, by completing this frame in this way, we will have reached the point where we first started. Then we'll start row 3. Look at the third row. When we get to this corner, we need to knit the side bellows. Now let's complete this sequence and move on to making the bellows points. After the bellows point, we will continue to the next stage. Now look, we knit 2 rows of single needles here, and we came to the exact corner where we started the single needles. Here again, look, we have not made any increases in the corner turns, and we are proceeding by knitting 1 single crochet in each. Now, at this point, we again insert the first single needle and continue to spray directly into the headspace. Look, at this point, when we look at it this way, we will proceed by knitting single needles at the top of each single needle. At this point, we have knitted 1 or 2 third rows. Look, we have now made 2 rows of frames. We have a long rectangular piece like this. Look, after making 2 rows of frames and knitting them straight, we are now back to the point where we started. We will continue knitting with single crochet until this corner. After this corner, we will immediately start knitting the bellows point. I want to show the bellows point as well. We start with 15 chains on 14 single crochets. I continued until there are 50 rows. The numbers may vary. You can do more. You can also make the number of rows less. If I give the measurement in centimeters, look, this is our bellows point. We will knit 2 of these. Here we can say 8.5, 9 centimeters and 2 centimeters. The length of the bag is 41 centimeters. The original size of the bag is 36 centimeters. The length is 41 centimeters and the side edge depth is 7 centimeters. In our case, it was 8.5 centimeters. The maximum length is 41 centimeters, which means it is the same size as the original. It happens like this. If I were to tell you about the width, look, we have made 37 centimeters more in width. Of course, even if we use the same yarn and the same crochet number, the measurements here may differ because our knitting frequency and looseness will be different. You may also have such differences. It is also worth mentioning how to make this side blind. We are knitting this. Actually, it is exactly the same technique that we started with the bag. We will knit the handle in the same way, but I want to go over it briefly. Look what we are doing. We made our first chain a lock. We prepare our chains so that they are a little looser than the setting we knitted. We started with 15 chains for the side bellows. We knitted until there were 50 rows. I also shared the measurements with you. We adjust this according to the point where we will place it in our bag. Now, I will talk about this too, but how do I knit single needles? I want to show this too. We reverse the chain. Just like when we first started, we knit our single needles by leaving the last chain and sinking into the back cut line of another chain. In this way, we knit single needles. I wanted to show you a small example here. Then again, unchained turns. We stretch the loop slightly and turn the knitting directly. We continue by knitting single crochet again by sinking into the first space that comes up. We will apply this process to both the side bellows and the handle part. And when we come to the last point, look, we sink into the last point that looks like a spike and knit our single needle. We stretch the loop, we turned it and moved to the first space that came up. We knitted our single needles by sinking. We proceed by knitting our single needles in this way. Now, what are we going to do here in the side blind section? I want to get to this point. Then how do we place the side blind? I will talk about it right now. Look, this is where our end and beginning were. We started our third row single needle and came to this end. Let's remember we had a long rectangular piece. We framed it with 2 rows of single crochet. Look, we always knit from the straight side. We do not turn the reverse part. We came from here to this end. Now we will place the side bellows part. I also showed the bellows part. We just start our bag as if we were starting and get 14 single crochets. I started with 15 chains and knitted this until I had 50 rows. How did I set this up? I want to talk about this briefly. Look, I based it on this part. I had single needles here, 19 on this side, 19 on that side. This is the middle part of my bag. Look, I divided this part into 3. So I left 14 single crochets in the middle, keeping the numbers equal on the right and left. So I have allocated 14 single needles for the base. 14 single needles will be placed in this part of the bellows. Look, 14 single needles will be placed in this part. Both the base will sit, and look, I have determined this length with safety pins. I have determined the length with safety pins. 14 single needles will be placed in this part. How did I adjust the points? And the point where the safety pin is, that is the length part, and I held it like this. Look for it to settle here. The numbers may differ for you. You may also want deeper bags. Again, it may be larger. You need to adjust this according to your hand. It is also worth mentioning this. For me, 50 rows of single crochet were enough. Now I will start assembling from this part. Let's take it from the opposite side. Now we're down to the tip here. Look at it right there in the corner. There was a trio here, 1, 2, 3. I'm sinking into the single crochet where the second one is exactly. I knitted 1 single crochet here. Now I'm going to pierce the top of this single crochet. Look, I knitted the last needle. I'm sinking into the top of the single crochet. And I sink into the first hole of the piece I will join. That is, I sink into the gap where we knitted single needle, and from this point I remove the stitch and knit single needle. I immediately sink to the bottom. And I dip into the next point, dip into the appropriate space, and knit single crochet again. So look at the small part of the bag. This is the side bellow. This is the front side. I start to combine it to create a smooth image with the front part equal to the front piece. We will place it by sinking through the appropriate gaps. I prick the single crochet in the front, in the long rectangular piece. Then we insert the appropriate space in the bellows and knit 2 pieces at the same time. See, with single crochet, We are doing our merging. It's pretty easy. If you have already reached this stage, you will be able to assemble it very easily. Look, we will combine our piece by continuing the frequent stitches like this. Look, if you think you'll be surprised, you can also put it on its hook. After assembling the piece, we will come to the base part. Likewise, there are 14 single crochet needles on the base. We set 14 single crochets here too. We will unite them mutually by sinking. Then we will move to this side. Look. We will combine it with single crochets on this side and in this part. After we finish at this end, we will continue. We will knit the third row here on the front of the bag. We will knit our single needle and come to this end again. Just like we did with the other piece, when we got here, I immediately knitted the other piece like this. I'll take the side bellows. Here, see how we put this side bellows together. I'm going to combine this in the same way, starting from here. Look, by combining them in a U shape, we will come to the point where we started. Look, the number of rows here is 1, 2, 3. We will have reached the first point where we started the row of 3. This is how we will combine the side bellows. Finally, I'm thinking of using a row of single crochet stitches at the mouth. Afterwards, we will move on to making our stems. Look, we have completed it for you here as we described. Where were we now? Look, we started the placement from here. We placed the U-shaped side bellows. Then, look at this end. After sinking to the last point, I knitted another single needle at the same point. At this end, I knitted one single crochet on each end and crossed this mouth part. Then I started assembling the side bellow piece here. Look at the U shape again. Like on the other side, we made the combination and came to the final point. At this point, we will finish. When I checked the original bag, there were no rows knitted in this section. It's finished here. We will finish right here now. I take it like this. Look, after making the combinations in this section, look at the last point. I want to show this part. Look, we are ending the mergers mutually. And look at the last point. I'm going to knit one single crochet once again at the point where I made the needle on the front side. I'm going to cut my thread enough. I will immediately take this short rope in from the intermediate points and follow it through the appropriate gaps. We will go down and walk around inside. After I finished knitting the bag completely, I ironed it, but you can iron it without putting the pieces together, but it can be ironed easily. I ironed it with a steam iron from the inside, and I ironed the outside again. Look, this is a beach bag, but you can easily use it in the city every day. It is not too wide, it is a little bit long. The original size of the bag was 36 centimeters by 41 centimeters. Now, at this stage, I will give you the measurements. Look, when placing the side blind, we needle a row more tightly, so the width becomes a little larger. When I measure, look, I leave the bag, and it is 38 centimeters. Our measurement is 38 centimeters. I will measure up to the side blind point because this part is the base. Look. Let's measure it this way. Our bag measures 41 centimeters, just like the original bag. The depth is also at 8.5 centimeters. The original is also 7 centimeters. Look at us. Since we joined the sides together, the leather of the bag is actually 8.5 centimeters. It would be more accurate to say 8 centimeters. 9 centimeters became the size of the side bellows. Now let's braid and prepare our stems. Look, here we prepared the handle in exactly the same way as we prepared the side bellows. I will give you the numbers right away. We started with 7 chains. We had 6 single crochets and continued this until we had 60 rows. We knitted until there were 60 rows. Now let's take some of the flexibility out of this. The length of the handle is 47 centimeters. I don't like long stems. I don't want it to hang too much so that I can wear it on my shoulder. But you can do it as much as you want. The length of the handle is 47 centimeters. And look, it's close to 4 centimeters, 3.5, 4 centimeters. When I hold it like this, you see that its width is like this. Now I knitted this on 6 single needles until there were 60 rows. What do I do next? After knitting until there are 60 rows, I will start counting right here. I fold rows 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 immediately like this. I'm sinking with my hook. Look, we do not knit a long section, then to 18th place. Let's count again so we don't make a mistake. I leave 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. I'll sink to 19th place. So I count like this. See 2, 2, 1, 2 rows. I sink to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Look, I immediately sink into the space that comes with it. I leave this part, that is, we leave 18 rows. We move on to joining from 19 rows. I join the shelter. I immediately take my yarn to the end of the crochet hook, remove a loop from this point and pull a chain. Then look, we left it on a short rope. We will have knitted this short rope by hiding it. Now I sink into the appropriate gaps mutually and I am knitting single needle. We will continue with single needle. Look, we will have made 2 layers here. I'm sinking. We also hide the short rope. We've hidden enough. Let's take it to the interior. How far will we sink here? You need to use a hook for this. In this section, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 are added to this 19th point. Let's put on our safety pin now so that we can see where we will end when we finish. Look, I'm folding it like this. This part will be thick. I continue knitting the point, coming to the shoulder part with frequent needles like this. Look, I made one. In this way, we finish with a single crochet, right up to the point where the safety pin is. By the way, it is also useful to say this. Look, you know we use this technique a lot to sew on the bag when starting and finishing. We start with long ropes as we begin and finish. We finish with the long rope. This technique is really practical because we don't have to tie a rope again to mount it on the bag. Now look at this image. Here we insert the last single needle into the point where we will insert it last, pull a chain and hide the short rope. And we get an image like this. Now we will assemble the handle. We will assemble our bag by sewing the handle with an itami needle. The original bag did not contain any aces. It was a beach bag completed this way. Our recipe is like this. Now let's finish our stems, sew them, and let me quickly share the final version with you. And we completed our bag by placing it on our handle. It was a really nice bag. I can say that it was exactly the same as the original. I would like to tell you right away how much rope I used. I used 100 gram raffia threads. A total of 3 balls, that is 300 grams, were enough for this bag. But if you are going to do it with paper string, be sure to keep 400 grams of it with you. I say this as a precaution because there will be changes from hand to hand. Because the paper string is thinner, it can go a little further. It is also worth mentioning this. We have prepared such a bag of 300 grams with raffia rope. I have already shared the measurements with you. I hope you like it and try it too. I wish good luck to those who will do it. Don't forget to like our video, leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye until we see you in the next video.